Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm going to work through three fronts relative to blocking the outside zone play for. And these are kind of umbrella fronts. It's not going to be every scenario and situation that you'll see. Um, there are principles and nuances, though, I think you can apply to every front that you'll see. And I believe what I'll cover is going to really kind of have a catch-all for most defensive alignments. Um, so we're running outside zone, and the first front I'm going to draw through is kind of the 4-3 front, 40 front, if you will, depending on how many blockers you have in the play. Um, and I think this is still probably the most popular front in football. And there are a couple of different ways they can line up. I'm going to draw just really work just through a couple of different alignments on the tight end. The first one, I'm going to put a 6 technique, and I'm going to put a Sam linebacker there. I'm going to stack. I'm going to put a tight 3 technique. I'm going to put a Mike. I'm going to put a shade right there in the backside A gap, and then a Willie and a 4-eye on the tackle. Now, obviously, working play side to backside, my opinion, if you have a 6 technique and a stack Sam linebacker, if you can get the ball on a pure outside zone play, if you can get the ball outside the 6 technique, you should. So this defensive alignment here, they might not play this every time, but if you have a full back in the backfield or a tight end back here, or if it's a 4-minute situation or at least a relatively short yardage, 2nd and 3, so on and so forth, you may not have this guy apex and these guys slid over. So worst case scenario here, and I think the best way to handle this is to have the tight end dip and rip heavy through the outside half of the 6 technique. Really lift it, carry it with that inside arm, or you can flipper it, depending on what you like, and then have him take a good angle, come off on this Sam linebacker. He doesn't want to get compressed by the Sam over the top. He wants to stay wide enough to create an alley out here for the ball to run. The tackle is going to be on what I call a mini pull technique, where he's going to get some depth and run and reach the 6 technique. He's going to have to get his backside shoulder all the way through and try to have the ball outside his block. Now, there are variances to do this if the 6 technique won't allow it, or if you're not comfortable doing it like that. The first way is to just have the tight end take the outside half of the 6 technique, have the tackle get some depth looking for the slant, and then work to knock the defensive end out, and then obviously climb to the Sam linebacker. I've also seen teams, whether it's a 6 or a 9 technique, have the tight end release to the Sam linebacker and have the tackle treat this like he's a 7 technique, get some depth, and just work the end out, knowing the ball is going to have to cut back. So that's a couple of different variations of blocking the play, whether it's a 9 or a 6. Obviously, if it's a pre-snap and a 9 technique, you're probably going to want to either just have the tight end step to the outside half and threaten the outside, but then work it out, or just have him release if his linebacker's out here and it's a 6 technique. You do have to have some variances within how you do things, but techniques, I think, that I'm laying out for you can be used in all scenarios. So if you can get it reached, if he's in a tight 6 or a 7 technique, then dip and rip, come off, go to a pull technique here to try to reach it. At least early in the game, the more you can do this, the better off you're going to be as far as loosening everybody up. Now, with a 3 technique and a Mike linebacker over the center, especially in a situation where you have a 6 technique, you're probably going to get a pretty tight 3, maybe even a 2 technique in here. In this situation, I think pre-snap, I think what you want to do is to have the guard dip and rip through the 3 technique, get to the Mike linebacker. Still, same thing. He's carrying it. He's heavy. He's really lifting. He's not running away from the 3 technique. And then you want your center to do what I call a mini pull technique, just like he's going to pull on pin and pull, but he's not going to pull around anybody. He's going to overlap right there to the 3 technique overlapping the guard to reach the 3 technique. This is different from what a lot of people do. People reach the 3 and send the center to the mic, or they knock the 3 over. But I think if you can, ideally, if you can reach the 3 technique or the 2 technique with the center, it's going to loosen everything up. And it's going to create what I call the gray area, where the 3 technique kind of plays heavy and inside, and then the center gets picked because he can't release to the Mike linebacker, or the center doesn't get enough depth to where they can make the clean exchange on it. So if you have the center running that pull technique, and I'll have some clips in the box below the video of the center doing this, you'll see it makes everything easier. You can split the defense so much more. And his first couple 3 yards have to be depth and width, and he has to be running. I'm going to erase this and draw it up again so I can talk about the backside of the play. On the backside of this look, and again, whether you have a fullback in here, whether it's a short yardage deal, you're under center, or if you're in some sort of shotgun and it's a shorter yardage situation. And again, I'm going over, basically as bad as it gets right here. There's a rule for this backside tackle, which is if this will linebacker is touching you, head up or touching you, you got a great chance of taking a good angle toward the inside linebacker, the Mike in this situation, and cutting off the will linebacker at the second level. Don't have to physically cut, but in theory, at least sealing him from pursuit. If the will linebacker, because they've played a different front or whatever, is in here touching the guard, maybe it's a 2 technique and a will backer, in that situation, the mindset has to be, I'm probably going to have to send the guard on through, taking a good angle to linebacker, dipping and ripping through his inside, right? Certainly at least a good arm, a good heavy bench press, but worrying primarily about blocking this weak side linebacker right here, and then have the tackle get some depth and run. And know he's going to have to run not just 2 or 3 steps, but probably, 7, 8, 9 steps at least to be able to get to the backside 3 technique. I think if he gets depth and runs, knowing, hey, I've got to go cut him, block may occur way over here in the original alignment of the center and guard, but that's fine because you're just getting depth and you're running, and the play's going wide anyway. But you're going to have to, literally, I think, lose quite a bit of ground and just run. If you look at the best tackles in the game, they do this, and it doesn't matter if they're trying to cut a 2-eye or a 3 technique or just scoop it. If they get their depth and run, they at least give themselves an opportunity to get there. Normally, you're probably going to have a situation where, with the front I drew up, where the shade's here in the backside A gap, and a Willie's maybe a 4-eye or he's head up on the tackle, where you can release to will linebacker at a good angle, running toward the inside linebacker, and then sealing the play. In this situation here, if the shade's touching the center or he's hard A gap, the guard now is going to have to get some depth and run. And no, he's got to scoop the backside shade. And again, I think these are going to be a little bit longer blocks. They're not going to be instant. They're not going to be in the first or second step. They're going to have to get some depth and run. And whether you're working through on a cut for the inside knee or whether you're staying up, it's going to be some depth. It's going to be some width. And it's going to have to, if you do cut, really work 90 degrees up the field and make sure that you get the cut with enough inertia and velocity to actually get the guy down. But in general, this is one front how I think you can block it. You can try to dip and rip and overtake. You can, if he's in a 9 technique, have the outside half taken by the tight end, knowing he's going to keep him out if he doesn't come in. Have the backside tackle look for the slant and then knock it out and then work the linebacker. And then here, once you get the 3 technique loose, you may have a situation where he's just running with the guard. Well, that's okay. The guard can then flip it, and the center can work to the Mike linebacker. One important thing to note is running back just has to have some awareness of how they're blocking the play pre-snap, or if a certain situation happens, the ball may have to roll back. Or obviously, if it's a slant inside, the ball is going to have to go outside. So there has to be the choreographed with the running back, his aiming point, which I think on true outside zone is a good yard or 2 outside the tight end, and the scenarios that can occur that will make him look to either cut the ball back or run the ball outside. So that's the first front, the 4-3 front there. The next front I'm going to draw up is one that can be extremely difficult, but it is some sort of bear front look, some sort of bear front double eagle look, and I'll draw it here to this side. And the Patriots a couple years ago versus the Falcons in the Super Bowl ran this, and it's something that it can be a tough situation to try to run the ball against. But I think there are some rules that can be advantageous to successful execution of the play. Number one, you'll probably have a 9 technique out, unless you have true bear with a 6 and a 9 or 7 and 9. You're going to have probably a 9 technique out here. So the tight end is going to work for the outside half. He's going to get some depth and width and check for the slant to him. Then he can either help knock it out or he can just work to the linebacker. This is where the situation can be tricky, because I think it depends on where this linebacker is, the backside linebacker or the middle linebacker, if he's playing in a situation like this. Where he is going to dictate the combos that you use. So if the linebacker's back here, I think you can probably you can essentially man block it. Now there's different techniques to really zone block without necessarily looking like you're zone blocking, but you can essentially man block the 3 technique and the center, and then have the guard work at a good angle, giving a little one-arm bench press to this 3 technique for the tackle to get the scoop on and cut off this linebacker at the second level, and the ball can run in here, either in front of the 3 technique or in front of the nose guard, so on and so forth. Now, if the linebacker has moved, or you just don't want to do it like that, you feel more comfortable to send this guard to the nose guard for the center and have the 3 technique essentially being just cut by the tackle who's by himself, I think that's a logical move as well. As the center can dip and rip on that outside half, take the good angle to seal the backside linebacker off, and now that backside guard is going to get some depth and width and really run to the inside of that nose guard. And it's not going to be a 2-step cut, or it's going to be the block's going to occur over here some. It just has to. And so that's the other variation that can happen. The last kind of aspect of the bear front that can happen, and it depends on how many linemen you have in, but as this formation grows in popularity, this kind of the spread formation here, you do see some of this right here. You see some essentially 6-man boxes to stop the run, where you're going to have some sort of bear front and a Mike linebacker here over the center. In this situation, you really have to be accounted for all gaps, because they can have a game on here, and more importantly, the Mike linebacker is free to kind of flow where he wants to, if it's a play to the right or to the left of his alignment. And so I think the thing to do is send the center to the 3 technique and have the backside guard cut off the nose, either scoop or cut, and have the backside tackle scoop or cut the backside 3 technique. Now these all take muscle memory, repetition every day in the off season, spring practice, summer, fall, to actually not only identify the fronts, but also have the discipline to get the depth and width and run necessary to make these blocks. And in this situation that I laid out here, where you send the center to the 3 technique, it's very similar to what we talked about a minute ago with the 40 front, where it's the guard can dip and rip through it to the mic, the center can get his depth and run on his pull technique, go reach the backside, the play side 3, and the backside guard scooping the backside nose. Now here's the good part about this. If you have this alignment, especially with a tight end, but even if you don't have a tight end, even if you just have a defensive end in here and no tight end, if you can split the defense versus bear look, if you can let that guard dip and rip heavy through that 3 technique, take the good angle to Mike, have the tackle get his head on the outside number of the defensive end and just drive him out. Because more than likely, he'll whether it's a stand-up end or defensive end, he's going to have contained. Then have that running back run that ball B gap there. It's gonna create a huge, I think, lane to run through, which is where you're going to have some of your best runs. So if you can split the defense by reaching the 3 technique with the center versus this kind of bare look, right, where the Mike linebacker is over the gaps here and he can flow wherever he wants to, then you're going to have a great chance to really have some great plays. The last defense I want to touch on, again, this is an umbrella situation, so there are going to be nuances here that you have to take care of, but it's a 3-4 defense with a nose, either a type 4 or type 5, a linebacker here, doesn't matter what you want to call them, and then basically this kind of alignment. Now, start to the tight end play side first. There's different ways to do this, which are a little bit deeper. If you think there's going to be a slant here or a game here or something coming from here, where these guys all kind of zone block, even though it doesn't look like it's zone blocking. But for our purposes, essentially, this guy is going to be manned up on the 9 technique, and you're going to work a combo here. Now, how do you want to do this? I think the same thing as I said earlier. I think if especially early in the game, if he's type 4 technique or he's in a 4-eye, if you can get him, take him. So if the uncovered man can pull and overtake, and the covered guy can really carry that outside shoulder, dip and rip, heavy, work through the outside of the defensive end on his way with a good angle to the linebacker, then I think if you can get your depth and width and get over there and get it, and the ball can run in front of that block, I think that is ideal. I think that it's going to be some of your best plays. I think it loosens the defense up. So whether it's a type 4 or a 4-eye, I think that's how you want to handle that. Now, this alignment with the 0 and the backside linebacker is very much like we talked about with bare front. You can do it 2 ways. You can have the center reach the nose guard, and you can send him on a good angle to the backside linebacker if you feel like something might be on as far as a gain here, or if you don't like the backside guard's chances to get to the backside linebacker, then you're going to have to dip and rip through the nose guard with a good angle, obviously cutting off the backside linebacker. The center should have time to do this as the linebacker is aligned here, and then the guard's got to get his depth and run to get the backside scoop on the nose guard. You can play with this. Whether this guy's in a 4-eye, 5 technique, you can lock it. If you have something here, he can sift it and kind of work off. It doesn't really matter. As long as he gets enough depth and width to cut off the 5 technique or the 4-eye, so on and so forth. You can also have a backside 3 back there. Some teams just play this in a backside 3, or as far as this, those are the 2 ways to handle this nose guard and the backside linebacker. Either have the center dip and rip through, or send him at the good angle to block the backside linebacker. So it doesn't really matter, just to review, it doesn't really matter which side you run the ball to or out of what formation you're running. If you're a spread team and you line up a lot like this, then maybe you're going to run the ball this way. Maybe you do have a little bit softer edge to dip and rip versus that 4-eye, and that backside guard can get some depth and width. But for our purposes, again, 4-3, 3-4, the bear, some basic principles and rules that if you can teach the techniques and drills by working them continuously throughout the year, I think have a great chance to give the defense trouble and be consistent as you run the play. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.